We got word a couple hours ago from the United States Coast Guard that they have concluded their search for Lynette Hooker in the Bahamas, and I think that's a signal that we're moving into a next phase of this story, and that is the preparation for a no-body prosecution. I think that all the signals out there are that there's going to be a prosecution in this case, that authorities believe that Lynette Hooker was murdered, and that there's plenty of evidence showing that Brian Hooker is the guy that is the prime suspect, right? So, uh, what are we going to do today? I guess. By the way, hey, thank you to those of you who joined me last night for just an impromptu Sunday night live stream. I think there were like, I don't know, 50 of us together down in my dark room in my dingy, dank, dark basement. I should have led with that. Thank you to those who joined me for that. That was quite a lot of fun. Um, it's been a long time since I've done a multiple exposure print in a dark room, and that was just, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me for that. I will do that every once in a while from here on out. But yeah, thanks for doing that. Gavin, you're getting sidetracked though. Okay, so what are we going to do today? I've got a couple things that I have prepared. We're gonna talk a little bit about. First of all, we're gonna go to the Coast Guard news release, and then there are several videos that have come out over the weekend that are interviews with different people, including Lynette Hooker's parents, a neighbor, uh, a expert on no body prosecutions, and let's take a look at what what is probably going to happen now. What's going to happen next? And of course, we've got three really good questions. We've got headlines that, I mean, Friday and Saturday were busy days in true crime. So we've got some updates in the Sandra Birchmore case, Nancy Guthrie, Alex Murdaugh, Karen Reed. We've got some good news. We've just got a lot of show to get into. So yeah, buckle up. Now we're going to start with the question of the day just to get you going. Okay. Just to get you going. The question of the day is, what's a rule that you had growing up that now seems completely ridiculous? I don't know why I chose this question because, I mean, I grew up in a house without rules. Yes, that's right. That is correct. I grew up in a house without rules. Uh, but did you have a rule that while you were growing up, you're now like, that is the dumbest thing ever? I want you to get going in the live chat because there's going to be a lot of conversation today. Got to get you started. Got to get ready, get those thumbs going, get those fingers going, and yeah, we're gonna get into it. Stay with me. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. So grateful that you would spend your Monday evening with me, or whenever you are tuning in, whatever time zone you are in or time you're in. I'm grateful that you would spend that time with me. Tell you what, while you are answering the question of the day, don't forget to tell me where you're tuning in from. I just love that part. Okay. I love that part. I want to know where you guys are. And if you're new here and you like true crime, you like to get past all the sensationalism and fluff and true crime, this is a good spot for you. Hey, what I was talking about earlier, and you know what? I didn't prepare my window. I gotta drag this in so that it fits. But this was our live stream from last night, and that's the print we were working on. Let me see if I can get this. That looks pretty good. That's the print we were working on. I call that print Old Iron. And I actually I had a little problem in the darkroom while people were watching. I was using my phone as my camera, and I completely dropped it in the chemical bath, in the fixer bath. So we had lots of issues because of that, but it was still fun. It was an hour and a half together in the dark room, and then if you guys are interested, I have made a limited run of those prints. I have let's see, let's refresh this. I printed 5 of them. It looks like 3 have sold. If you're interested in getting a print, you can do that on my website, gavinfish.com. There is a link down in the description below, and yeah, those are the only prints I'm going to do of that. 5 of them. And if you like it, great. If you don't, also great. But it's my hobby, and I enjoy it. So check it out if you want. If you want. Okay, guys, who are we talking about tonight? We are talking about Lynette Hooker. Okay, Lynette was on kind of in retirement, living her best life with her husband, Brian, sailing around the Caribbean. Here's a picture of both Lynette and Brian. They had a YouTube channel. They were on TikTok, and they were putting, it looked like they were living their best life together, but I think that they were living a social media, I think they were putting out a social media version of their life. And this is a natural thing that we all do. I fight against it as much as I can, but I mean, it's not like I'm going to put up all my bad news either, right? So it's just an artifact of the way we live on social media. But it appears that they were not in their own personal sailing Valhalla. They had a relationship that was tumultuous. Anyway, they were living aboard this sailing vessel named Soulmate. And the story goes from Brian Hooker that they were crossing from land out to Soulmate in this little 8-foot dinghy, their little mobile that got them from place to place, when he says that Lynette bounced out and had the emergency key to the engine or to the motor when she left, and it was in hard seas, and she drifted away, and he tried to paddle and paddled for 9 hours, and that was the last he saw her. He washed ashore and got help, so the story goes. The problem is that the forensic evidence does not match his story. At least that's what sources are saying. And this is this is well, anytime a person goes missing, we should be suspicious, right? And authorities are going to be suspicious. But as soon as a lie is clocked, that is when, like, okay, we got to turn the suspicion up, and we got to go after this guy. That's the way it is. And this guy got questioned this was in the Bahamas, so he was questioned by Bahamian police. I think he was held for like 72 hours under their law, and then was released, and he said, "I will not rest until I have found Lynette." And then he promptly bought a plane ticket and went back to the States. And his excuse was, "My mom is sick." But listen, if your mom is sick, what are you doing? And you're so concerned about it. What are you doing sailing around the Caribbean? Come on. It doesn't pass the smell test, right? It doesn't pass the smell test at all. Lynette Hooker is still missing. The Coast Guard has been looking for her. They have not found her. and we're going to get into the latest news on that. Before I do, let's hop over to see what you guys are saying in your in the live chat here. Let's see. Grace Mayato says, I'm from the new earthquake location. Oh, we had an earthquake? I was not aware. I was living in my own world. Proud Grizzly says, that was interesting to watch last night. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. I'm sorry that I dropped my phone in the fixer, and I'm sorry that the sound kept going in and out. But typically, yeah, it doesn't matter why, but it was fun to do that. Yeah. Call me Captain Obvious, but you are not in California. That is true. I am still in Western Pennsylvania. I am traveling tomorrow. So I will not be live streaming tomorrow. And my schedule over the next couple of weeks, guys, is going to be unscheduled. Because we've got so many different things planned. I'm still going to be working most days on my day job. And we've got so many things planned with the family on this little vacation of ours. Vacation. It's never really a vacation, right? It's we're going to come back more tired than when we left, but it's going to be fun and it's going to be awesome. But yeah, I'm just going to be checking in with you guys from time to time on my phone, probably going on walks and just checking in, from time to time over the next couple of weeks. All right. Yeah, we're doing a family vacay and it's going to be awesome. But you are right, Mooney. I'm still out here in Western PA. Dianelle says, stupid rule, be home by dinner. You might be about my age. Yeah. When the streetlights come on, that's when you need to be home. Athena said, be seen and not heard from. That was, yeah. My grandparents had, like many people of their generation, including actually my parents, so both generations, they had a family room, like an informal family room, and then they had a formal living room. Come to think of it, our house has that, but we have a Victorian house, so it's just kind of the way it is, but it's the way it's set up. But we don't use it that way. Grandpa and Grandma had this formal living room that had a door that closed. And so the adults would go in to do whatever the adults did. They were visiting or they were playing games or whatever it was that they were doing, watching a movie, and they would close the door, and us poor kids had to be on the other side of the door. It was torture. So funny. Cabling says, you need to hear the conversation between Baleen and Brian regarding when she fell overboard. He said they both were in the water. Makes me speculate a whole nother scenario. Blaine is what you said, not Baleen. Gotcha. Okay. Hello said, I don't think I had rules. I guess stay away from drugs. I was the youngest of 6. That's a great. We were raised with a family mantra that was, there are no rules until you break one. Then you will know that rule. And basically, it was telling us, please just be good people. Please just be good kids. Grow up to be good adults. We don't need to have a rule for every situation. But as soon as you cross a line, it's going to come down on you. And it did. That's funny. Dianelle says, watch STS with his guests. Very interesting. Yeah, I love Joel over there. I watched a little bit of his stuff last week. I haven't watched it today. Jacksonville, Florida is in the house. Thank you for checking out. Music to my ears. Sorry, I fell asleep watching you in the dark room. That's perfectly fine. My voice tends to do that. Athena says, new from Glasgow, Scotland. Gavin looks and sounds like Judge Richard Mrazek. That's hilarious. I only aspire to have that man's voice. Crazy. Marietta, Georgia, checking in. The Only Mooney says, my mom told me the people on TV could see me. If I left or misbehaved, they would tell her I hated sitting there. Oh, Mom. She knows what's up. That's funny. Washington is here. Thank you very much. Frida, I don't know what exactly the stupid rules were, except for my next eldest sister who insisted there was a correct way and only one way to peel an orange. I daren't ask if it's still true. That's funny. Diane says, I will watch your photo video. Love photography. Glad you will. Thank you. Analytical One said, we were not allowed to play card games or checkers, but my father managed a nightclub and ran moonshine. Go figure. That's funny. So they had the rules at home, but not the rules at work, I guess. It's funny. Watching from the home of the three Shastas. Are you speaking of mountains? Are you speaking of diet sodas? I don't know. Dianelle says, we were told don't sit too close to the TV or our eyes will go bad. Now look at everyone looking at their screens. That's funny. I couldn't get my ears pierced until I was 13. I had the same rule for my daughter. Patricia says, his story, talking about Brian, is so convoluted but lacking in detail that it's not even remotely credible. Lynn Taylor, our rule was we were not allowed to come downstairs after waking up unless we were fully dressed for the day, and no rips in your clothes. Wow, that is specific. Specific. Frida says, if your schedule is going to be unscheduled, then we'll just plan not to plan. That's a good plan. I like it. My mom would say, Barb says, my mom would say, don't be late. The thing is, what time was too late? That's great. Hello says, I only got in trouble when it was too late. Barb says, rule, you couldn't leave the kitchen table if you didn't finish your dinner. Yep. Autumn says, not to be inside during the day and be home when the streetlights turn on or big trouble. That sounds a lot like the way I grew up. Jenny says, I only had 2 rules growing up. Be home by 9 p.m. on school nights, and your grades better be good. Nice. I think when they went to the other room, they were having a little drinky. Yeah. Well, I don't think so in my parents' case. That's funny, though. They just needed time away from the kiddos. Checking in from Erie. Thank you very much. Ohio Palm Mom says, I was told standing in front of the microwave would make me unable to have children. That is funny. Thanks for playing along, guys, and thanks for checking in. I love this new tradition of ours of the question of the day. All right. Come with me, if you will, over to this press release from the U.S. Coast Guard that just came out about an hour, 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours ago. Coming to us from news.uscg.mil, U.S. Coast Guard concludes Bahamas mission in Lynette Hooker disappearance investigation. Dateline, Washington. The U.S. Coast Guard concluded its mission to the Bahamas in support of the ongoing investigation into the disappearance of Lynette Hooker Friday. Search operations employed... Uh-oh, guys. Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Where did my yawn button go? There it is. Too late, Gavin. Too late. All right. That hasn't happened in a while, but I had a yawn there. All right, continuing. Search operations employed a range of specialized capabilities, including divers, remotely operated underwater vehicles, unmanned aerial systems, and a cadaver dog to thoroughly examine newly identified areas of interest. We're actually going to watch a Banfield interview of Lynette's parents that talk about this. During the mission, the Coast Guard Investigative Service also conducted a custody transfer of the hooker's dinghy from Bahamian authorities to the United States for further forensic examination. The Coast Guard's efforts... oh my goodness. Come on, man. What am I doing? This is unprofessional. Unprofessional. Gavin, I need to be whooped with lightly, spaghetti noodle, something like that. Okay. The Coast Guard's efforts were supported by the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and Canine Maggie from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Coast Guard units included the Coast Guard cutter Margaret Norvell, homeported in Miami, Florida, and Coast Guard divers. CGIS, I know, do they say Chigs or something like that? I don't know. GIS, SGIS, SGIS, SGIS. I don't know. CGIS is the U.S. Coast Guard's federal law enforcement and criminal investigative agency responsible for conducting criminal investigations in support of the Coast Guard's missions. Staffed by federal special agents, the agency investigates offenses including fraud, corruption, cybercrime, murder, drug trafficking, serious crimes involving Coast Guard personnel, and other violations of federal law with a Coast Guard nexus. Working with domestic and international law enforcement partners, CGIS agents collect evidence, conduct interviews, execute search warrants, and make arrests, and support prosecutions. The investigation continues. Anyone with information about the disappearance of Lynette Hooker or any other crime within the purview of CGIS is encouraged to report it to the TIP app. Additional information will be released as it comes available. So they're not giving up. They're not giving up. They're just like the mission that we went to go do is finished as of Friday. We got the dinghy. We're going to be doing more forensic investigation, and that's where we are now. I don't want to start with the parents. We're going to get to the parents. What I want to start with, I think, let me bring, yeah, I want to start with this video. Okay, this came from Forbes. I think it's about 6.5 minutes long, the edit that I grabbed here. And in this video, they're talking about no body prosecutions because I think we all agree, and I think even her parents have come to the sad conclusion that Lynette is no longer with us, that Brian has done something to Lynette. That's what they believe. I mean, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but having listened to an interview on Banfield, I feel like that's where they are. And man, they've kept their composure, or they did during that interview. But I can't imagine what they're going through. But so far, we haven't found Lynette. The great we, the all inclusive we. It's not like I'm out there looking for it, but Lynette's body has not been found, and the likelihood of her body being found, I think, is low, just because of the nature of her being lost. These are air quotes, lost at sea. So this on Forbes, they interview a nobody prosecutor, an expert in this. I want to watch this together, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go.
It has been 2 months now since 55-year-old Lynette Hooker went missing in the Bahamas. Her husband said that she fell off the back of their dinghy as they were riding toward the boat that they lived on, and she has not been seen since. Now, her case is being investigated reportedly as a possible murder. But before we get into that, and I do want your perspective on this story, I want to zoom out just a little bit here. You were a federal prosecutor. You're a no body homicide expert. So, to start off the conversation, how hard is it to prove a no body case? What goes into that?
Thanks for having me on. I think the challenge in a no-body murder case is because you obviously don't have the most important piece in a homicide case, which is the body. The body can give you where the murder happened, when the murder happened, how the murder happened. So not having that puts the investigators at a huge disadvantage because in any other murder case, that's the first thing typically that detectives encounter the body and it gives them some clues. So generally, no body homicide cases are very difficult to prosecute. Once they get to trial, they actually have a very high success rate. But the challenge in the cases is getting to trial. One of the things that's interesting about this case here, if it is indeed a no body homicide case, which I believe that it is that we do know roughly what time Lynette Hooker went missing. We know roughly where. There's been some controversy about that we can talk about. But what we don't know is how. So in the nobody case, as I mentioned, you're usually missing these three key facts. Here, we have a pretty good idea of approximately the information about two of those facts. So that makes it a less difficult case. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy to solve, but you're starting with an advantage because in a lot of missing persons cases, as you know, it may be a week, it may be a month before anybody reports the person.
So yeah, I guess that is good news, right? That in this case, I mean, we know when she was last seen, and his claim is that she went overboard shortly thereafter, and then within a few hours he was back on land, right? So at least we know that. Um, I don't think they're going to have a problem proving this case when it gets to court. I was about to say if it gets to court. I think this is going to court.
And people may have no idea what's known as their last known location. Here, we have some clues as to where it happened and when it happened.
And that timeline, is that pretty tight? Because Brian Harker said that his wife fell off the boat around 7:30 p.m. He what got to shore and authorities were contacted around 4:15 a.m. the next day. So that's about 9-ish or so hours. How tight is that?
So that's tight in the sense of when you look at no body murder cases overall,
So that's good
but
news.
it's not obviously as tight when you have a body. You can check the body and you'd be able to tell, did this murder happen an hour ago? Did this murder happen 9 hours ago? Did this murder happen 2 days ago? So, sort of in the pantheon of no body murder cases, it's a fairly tight timeline, but it is still nowhere near as tight as it would be if you had found the body and could really put a much better and tighter timeline on that.
There have been new developments in Lynette Hooker's story that I do want to talk about. Like I said earlier, she went missing on April 4th. Brian Hooker, her husband, said that while they were traveling on a dinghy, she flew off the back. The words that he used apparently were bounced off of the back of that dinghy because of really choppy waters, and he was unable to reach her, and she did not come back on that boat, and that was the last time.
This part of the story, by the way, is such hogwash that I just don't feel like man, what's happening with my lower thirds? Give me a second. There we go. Lynette was a seafaring person. Like you batten things down. If there was really choppy water, come on. I just don't believe it for a second. Let me get it started again.
He was seen. As of now, this week, the Coast Guard is searching for her in different and new areas because reportedly the information that Brian relates with authorities isn't matching with GPS data that was found on at least one of his devices. NBC's reporting a U.S. official said that what Brian told investigators caused them to look for Lynette in the wrong area. That was the phrase that was used. Like I said earlier as well, multiple outlets are reporting that her case is now being investigated as a possible murder, despite Lynette 2 months later still not being found. When you think about all of this, when you think about this story in general, what are your thoughts overall?
So, first, let me touch on your second point first, which is this case should be investigated as a homicide, no matter what.
Guys, this is like the reason I wanted to show you this clip. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so angry about the Ellen Greenberg case. You always go into a death investigation thinking this is probably a homicide. I'm going to investigate this as a homicide first. And if it's proven not to be a homicide, then we will change course, right? And I mean that is in the investigative Bible. Do that. The homicide investigator's Bible is it's always a homicide until it is proven not to be. And so this guy's his input here is spot on.
Even if it was an accident or if she's still, somehow still alive, it should still be given the investigative diligence, the resources, and the effort as if it were a homicide. There's no downside to doing that. I think the first information you imparted is very significant information and is one of the critical reasons why I believe this actually is a homicide. Because when you look at what Mr. Hooker said, and I don't know exactly what he said, but I know from reporting that what he said in terms of where she fell off and where he was looking is different from what his GPS device says. These are both people who are experienced sailors,
Right.
are going to know where they were, where they weren't. A lot of us on the ocean may not know that.
I mean, is there a reason why he might have been wrong? Is it possible that he was drunk or I don't know, something turned around? Is that possible? It's possible, but what's the probability? These are experienced seafaring people. And he had GPS devices on him. So, not buying it.
But someone who's an experienced sailor like both of them would know that information. So to find out that, in fact, he said we were at X location and his GPS shows something significantly different is a very significant fact. Now, could it be because he said I was so distraught over what happened? I got confused. Absolutely. But we haven't heard any of that from Brian Hooker. He hasn't come out and said, oh, no, I made a mistake because, I got knocked on the head. I got discombobulated as to where we were. And one of the things I tell investigators when they're looking at a no body murder is look at any provable lies that your suspect told, because those are very
Yes.
significant. In a case where a wife is missing and a husband tells a lie, that is very significant information because if he's innocent, why would he tell a lie? He would certainly want to try and find his wife, something he said he was going to stay in the Bahamas and do. And yet, the first opportunity he got to leave the Bahamas, he very quickly left. And we've not heard anything about any searches or any interest that he has had in finding or recovering her body.
And I think that's probably the end of where I did it there. And I think that's absolutely like his story hasn't matched. It that he's been caught in a lie. He says he was someplace. He wasn't. The GPS proves it's there. That's enough to say homicide. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And I've really appreciated your comments as you guys have been going along. Crafty Chris says most dangerous time is when leaving, and it takes 7 times to actually leave. And this is actually something that they talk about in the interview with Banfield, right? That yeah, we're going to get to that. Thank you, Crafty Chris. And that is, and you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct about that. And I think that this couple were oil and water. I think they didn't. I think that it was just a um, it was a it was not a good match. And I think that Brian was probably abusive, and I think that he was. I mean, there are reports that he strangled multiple people, including Lynette. And of course, when that happens, that is the number one indicator that somebody is going to die by homicide later, even if it's not by strangulation, right? So, um, yeah, I think our friend Brian says that it's 800%. The chances of being a victim of homicide go up 800% if you are a victim survivor of strangulation. So, yeah, I think she's probably had enough, and this was a very, very dangerous moment for her. And um, yeah, Crafty Chris again, toxic relationship, and no one was going to make it out. Sadly, it was her. Um, the two says, did Lynette reveal to him that she was leaving, and that photo of him at the Abaco Inn shows him pouting? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can speculate about that, but I'm not sure. Okie dokie. Let me now bring you over to this interview here. This is from News Nation, Jesse Weber. And the woman on the right there is a neighbor. So, so she has a little bit of insight as to what the relationship was like. This is about a 6-minute clip. And I think this gives us some good insight as to kind of what the relationship between Brian and Lynette was. And it reinforces the idea that Brian should be investigated for murder. Where is Brian, by the way? Nobody seems to know. I think his mom that was ill was supposedly in Sacramento. But where is he? I don't know. All right, let's have a listen.
I'm joined by Jordan Plentz. She lived across the street from Brian and Lynette Hooker for years, has said that their relationship was often turbulent. Jordan, thanks for joining me on this Friday night to talk about it. You've been watching this case from the very beginning. What is your reaction now to this renewed search for Lynette in these different areas, and now that the U.S. Coast Guard has taken custody of the dinghy?
I mean, I knew the story obviously was not adding up from the start, but I knew the U.S. Coast Guard was going to take over this case. They came to my work and talked to me a little bit. They've been trying to take over the case because of the Bohemian government, like not having a lot of resources to kind of uncover what happened to her. And I think with them taking over, I think they're going to really find out what really happened to her. With this, I saw them last week. They were down at my neighbor's house, which is Lynette's mom. And I think they're starting to really get some footing on what really happened. I don't think that she drowned. I think that something happened prior to that. And I think that was the best story he could.
By the way, it's Bohemian, not Bohemian. Right? Perfectly fine. Bohemian is somebody from the Bahamas or something from the Bahamas. Bohemian is somebody who lives kind of an alternative lifestyle. Those are the two. Why did I even stop for that? I got distracted by it. That's
Up with
why.
at the time. But their relationship has always been pretty rocky. Lynette has lived here on her own a couple months, like out of the year, trying to get away from the domestic violence situation. So I hope that, justice is served and they find her body and they charge him.
What, when you say they had kind of a rocky relationship, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you observe?
I mean, I knew mostly from what her mom told me because she would let me know. She lived in Florida in the off season, not on the lake season. We live on the lake. And she just told me, like, hey, I just want to let you know Lynette would be living there, that things are getting bad in the household, that, Brian is violent verbally, physically, that she needed to get away from that. So she would leave periodically and then always go back. But it's a 25-year cycle that she was in. It's not that easy for
It's
somebody to
not.
leave in that scenario. I anticipated she would leave before something this bad would happen. So, I hope that truthfully they find more evidence and personally hold him accountable for what he is doing because he's a free man right now. Nobody knows where he's at.
You said that the Coast Guard has been in touch with you. Is it true the FBI has also been in touch with you as well? I mean, and what
Yeah,
for?
like they just wanted to get background on. So I have this camera out front of my house and it kind of just like has a display of like the whole house. And when they both lived here from September, October-ish, before they set sail for this big trip. And I was willing to give up my camera footage to them to see if they could catch any altercation because they would walk late at night, but they were pretty private for the most part. I only know like specific details from her mom, just letting me know like, hey, if you see anything or this is why Lynette is here.
That's got to be tough. Like Lynette's in her 50s. Her mom is aged and still has to worry about the well-being, the safety of her daughter, which is so sad to me. Oh, that's just my goodness.
But I'm hoping with my camera footage and me getting access, hopefully Amazon will give me backdated access to that so that we could maybe catch something to kind of prove his character because nobody really knows. There's an act, when he's on camera, he acts like this sad.
This is the like the whole idea of this part. She talks a little bit about the social media side of things, right?
Husband.
That's interesting you say because they are YouTube life, right? You talk about being private people, but then there's videos on YouTube. Does that not match up from the people you know
No.
or what you've heard about?
No.
What do
It's
you
all
mean?
just, like, it's more of like a front, right? Like social media is a facade of what really happens deep down. And I think they tried to make the best of it and tried to maybe capture their memories, not necessarily directly their relationship. And I think it's really crazy that he's just roaming around there as a free man, and his wife has been missing for 2 months now, and he's just fine.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
He came back because he said his mother was sick, and that he would go continue the search. I don't believe that's happened. Is there any information you could shed on, him coming back and what he's been up to?
I think, personally, from what Darlene has told me, she said that she hasn't been in contact with him since this started. None of her side of the family.
Okay, that part is strange. Okay, listen. If I'm on a trip, and Kimberly goes missing, the people that I will be communicating with the most would be her folks, right? Unless there's just something that I don't want them to know. I don't want to slip up. I don't want to say anything that might give them a clue that I did something to their daughter, right? But barring that, dude, you'd be in touch with her family. And apparently he is not. He has just gone radio silent. And that to me, guys, that speaks volumes. Now, listen, I don't begrudge a person exercising their constitutional rights of remaining silent. In fact, I think we all should do that. But that is an indication to me that he did indeed have something to do with her disappearance, and I think death. I think that it is a clear signal that he does, that he has something to do there. Otherwise, why would he not be in touch with with her family? Hey, guys, I'm headed back to the Bahamas. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be looking there. I'm going to be talking to these people. If I see anything, I'll let you know. Will you please let me know? Those are the kinds of things that a normal person would do. It's so suspicious.
Really has. I think they know that he is guilty, and I feel
Yeah.
like he wouldn't have set sail if his mom was truly sick.
Exactly.
So for me, I don't think his mom was sick. I think it was an excuse to come back here and have a reason to leave the Bahamas and not look like the bad guy.
We show all these pictures of Lynette. We talk about her disappearing. We get so involved in the investigation. Sometimes we get lost about the person who's involved. What should we know about Lynette? How do you want people to think about Lynette? What do we not know about her?
I was just talking with her mom the other day, and she said she went on and did an interview, and she just wants her to be remembered as this happy, loving mother and daughter, and she was kind. She always had a smile on her face, and I think we forget that these family members are mourning,
Yeah.
a sister, a daughter, a mother, and we forget that, like, they don't even have a body right now to even put at rest, or even put the whole thing at rest. It's just so many unknowns, and I hope that with the U.S. being involved in this investigation, that they really can come down to what really happened to her and make things right for the family so that they can move forward. Because it's been rough around here. Like, we're from a small town.
Yeah.
It's like we're all really close, and it's hard.
It's not only hard in any kind of situation to try to have, you're not having answers to this situation, but to have the whole country following it and this spotlight and this narrative put on, I can only imagine it's not easy. And that's why I also want to thank you for taking the time, because I know it's not easy talking about this. But Jordan, thank you very much for giving some things to think about as this progresses.
I think that her parents have done a very good job, and her family members have done a very good job of keeping the spotlight on this case, because that's the leverage that they have that keeps authorities on the hunt, right? On the lookout, continuing investigating. I don't know if she is, if they were special agents from the CGIS. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, I think, is who told me that in the comments. Or if they were FBI special agents. Maybe they're working in tandem with one another. But it does look like the federal government is doing an investigation. Now, my question, and I think I know the answer to this one, but my question in that is, where does the prosecution happen? If all the investigation is done with U.S. assets, does the prosecution happen in the Bahamas? I still think the answer is yes. I think the answer is the crime was committed in the Bahamas by people there. They weren't in international waters, and the Coast Guard had to get permission to do their investigation there in the Bahamas, which they obviously got from the Bahamian authorities. So, so I think that's what will likely happen. But yeah, I mean, she hit the nail right on the head. Why, if your mom is sick, why are you going out sailing? That is just an excuse to get out of the Bahamas. Notice that the Bahamas don't have the same freedoms that we have in the United States. They were able to hold him for 72 hours and question and question and question him. That does not happen in the United States. You just say lawyer, and that is the end of that, right? So I think he wanted to get out of Dodge. I think he wanted to get out of the spotlight. And why is he not talking to her family? It's obvious. It's obvious to me. It shows me, in my opinion, that he has this consciousness of guilt. He is aware of his guilt and he does not want to talk about it. He doesn't want to slip up. He doesn't want to accidentally give anything away. And like you guys have been saying, I think it's been cabling in the comments. He's told different stories, right? He said they've both been in the water. He said that she went in the water. He said that he threw her flotation. It's all just so suspicious. Hello says Gavin, maybe you should touch on functional alcoholism. It's real and people really don't know about it. Yeah, I don't know much about functional alcoholism. There just hasn't been a lot of that in my life, but I'm certainly aware of that. And is it possible that Brian was a highly functional alcoholic and got mean when he was drunk? Yeah, sure. It does not excuse the behavior. And of course, I know, hello, you're not saying that. But yeah. Free to people, Gavin, they were private. I read that as she was isolated. That is, yeah, great comment. One of those coercive control things, right? Get your victim isolated and feeling like they don't have anywhere else to turn, that you are their only life raft, so to speak. Sorry about that metaphor, but yeah, it does seem like this was a relationship. Not only was it a tumultuous, rocky relationship, but that there was an element of coercive control, certainly with the strangulation, man. Oh my goodness. Elizabeth says, Gavin, absolutely. It screams guilt that he is not talking to her family. I'm glad you agree, Elizabeth. Let's see. Carly, who is Lynette's daughter, says, Carly said Brian's mom has been sick for years, so she said that could have been more of an excuse. Sure. Do I think he's in Mexico? There has been some talk about him going to Mexico. There are ways, guys, look. As a private pilot, I know that I could get into Mexico pretty darn easily without anybody knowing. It's really the honor system, whether or not you check in with customs when you cross over the border. We talked about a transponder the other day. You can turn off your transponder. You can, I mean, basically that means you're an unidentified craft. And if you're flying low enough, then most radar isn't going to see anyway. So yeah, there are ways to cross over. So is it possible that he's already left the country? Sure. There's probably a seafaring way to do it, right? I mean, I think a lot of checking in on customs and border patrol, borders and customs, I think a lot of that is the honor system when you're flying private or you're doing, I think it'd probably be pretty easy to sail out of Southern California or even Northern California, make it all the way down to Mexico, and nobody know that you came from the States. You could just be somebody who came in from, departed Mexico, came back into Mexico. So could he have? Sure. What are his, what are, I mean, he would have to have money. He would have to have some sort of support system in order to do that. But maybe he's talented enough to do it. I don't know. Possible. Dianelle saying, did Brian ever call Lynette's parents before this happened? I don't know what his relationship was with them. If he is an abusive person, I would imagine that he wasn't in touch with them a lot. They were married for 25 years, right? This is a long relationship. Let's see. Elizabeth McMaster says the investigators are CGIS, not the FBI at this point. That is what has been reported, I believe, and I think you're right too. Cabling says heard because Lynette is a U.S. national, it would be prosecuted in the U.S. I know that people have heard this, and I think Cabling, you've even brought this up a couple times. I just don't think that that's the case. If I go to Mexico and commit a crime, I'm a U.S. national, but I will be prosecuted in Mexico. Ask me how I know. Don't ask me how I know. If I'm in, I could be on a boat off of where I could be off of Italy in the Mediterranean Sea. If I'm in Italian waters in a U.S. flagged vessel with myself and my American wife, and I commit a crime, and they catch me in Italy, guess where I'm being prosecuted? So yeah, anybody who's saying that this will be a U.S. prosecution, I just don't know. I don't know what would point that direction. I think it would be Bahamian. And actually, I mean, we'd have to look at Bahamian law. Let's see. What does Bahamian law look like for murder? Under Bahamian law, the penalty for murder is either death or life imprisonment. So I think maybe we want them prosecuted in the Bahamas. I mean, if they were in Floridian territory, if they were in U.S. territory, of course it would be a U.S. thing. If they were in American waters, then this would be a federal case in America. But I think this is a Bahamian case. That's what I think. Let's see if there's anything else before we move on. Does not look like it. Okay. Thank you guys for those comments. You guys are awesome. All right. The last video that I have to show you is actually a little bit long. It's about 20 minutes. This is from Ashley Banfield from Drop Dead Serious on the 6th. So this was Saturday. And these are Lynette's folks. I think it is an important interview. I'm glad that Banfield did it. We're going to stop along the way and talk about it as we go. But just, I think maybe the most heartbreaking thing on this. No, it's not the most. There are just so many heartbreaking things on this. One of the heartbreaking things on this is her dad or stepdad, I guess, blaming himself for getting her the job at AT&T where she would eventually meet Brian. So that is just sad. But here we go. This from Banfield, Drop Dead Serious.
Bill and Darlene, I can't thank you enough for being with me. I can only say that this must be such a disappointment to you that that Lynette wasn't found. It's a disappointment to me, and I'm not her family.
I'm not disappointed.
Really?
No, I'm not disappointed.
Wow.
In fact, I'm happy they were there because it shows that they believe, like we believe, that there was foul play and that he did, in fact, though not, as my friend would say, not indicted, not
Yet.
charged with anything.
Yet.
that there is enough meat on that bone that it bears looking at. So,
the amount of grit that one has to have in order to do interviews like this, it makes me think of Josh and Sandy Greenberg, right? The amount of grit that you have to have, especially we're only 8 weeks out from when this happened. But it also kind of feels like in this case that they have lived through 25 years of their daughter being abused, that this was the logical conclusion that was going to happen eventually. It was the expected eventual outcome. That's the way it feels like anyway. And that's again just tragically sad.
What do you make of this now that we all suspected, right? We all had an idea. But what do you make of this now that we know the map shows that he crossed from Elbow Key, past the north tip of Lovers, and then suddenly takes a sharp left turn and heads south down Lovers? That's not somebody who was blowing in the wind.
No. If you'd asked me my personal opinion, I know Brian well enough. I've known him for 25 years. And I, in my own way, I try to mentor him somewhat. It didn't help much because he's hard at it. But I tried to mentor him in some ways. Brian does things almost like he doesn't play chess, but he knows the game. He's going to be one step or try to be one step ahead of where he thinks you're going to go. So if he did that, I didn't truly expect them to find anything because I know Brian well enough to know that if he did that, if he had a position, that he was using that as a diversion. You see this, but I'm really over here.
Very interesting. A very interesting take. Right. I know Brian well enough that he's trying to avoid I get not suspicion, but avoid being caught. Right. And I've known him long enough to know that maybe he's not good at the game, but he's playing it. That's wow.
And even if he left the boat in a place for 5 minutes, he could have swam or scubaed out to some other area. So I'm not disappointed that they didn't find him. I really didn't expect them to find anything, to be honest. But I need for this to be over.
Yeah.
I truly need for it to be over because it's impacting, and she doesn't see it, Darlene doesn't see it, but it's truly impacting her. And you can understand that. It would have an impact. But that impact is not positive. It's draining to cry every hour or so, to see something and just start crying.
Look at her face.
Or to have a thought or see something on TV that causes you an emotional outburst.
She's doing her best to just keep composed.
So it's very taxing. And I've told her, and I'll say it to you, is that if Brian did, and we won't say that he did, but if he did in fact kill Lynette, he's not charged with anything yet. Tick-tock. But he not only took one life, he really took a bunch of lives.
Yeah.
The impact it has had on Darlene and Carly is immeasurable. So,
Bill, this is our first interview with you, and I think it would really help the audience to realize how significant your relationship was with Lynette. I mean, stepdaughter, sure, but really more than that.
That was my baby. I mean, for 38 years. For 38 years, she's been a daughter to me. She's never missed a birthday or a Father's Day. She called me and sang. I mean, that was my baby. The last thing I told Brian Hooker when we were in Fort Pierce, I told him just before we left them, take care of my baby. And every time he's ever been around us and they left, that's the last thing I've ever told him was take care of my baby. And if you'll notice on one of the interviews, and I don't know which network it was on, whether it was CBS, ABC, whatever, he said, my biggest mistake is that I didn't take care of my wife. Yeah, because that's what I told him every time he saw me.
Yeah.
And I am very disappointed that he's not with her.
Darlene, tell me your thoughts now that this operation in the Bahamas is wrapped up.
Well, I definitely believe that the Coast Guard did a heck of a job. I mean, they outdid themselves. So I'm not disappointed in what they had done. I'm pleased with what they have done. I don't think it's over. I want Brian to not sit there with relief. I want him to feel that it's not over. I want him to understand that I'm not going to go away until I find my daughter. And they're not going to go away until they put him in jail. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
TikTok.
Oh, wow. Tough. Those are gritty people, man. Oh.
TikTok. I usually add something even worse on the end of that, but to that note, Darlene, everything that you learned from the Coast Guard, that map in particular, knowing what he said, what Brian said, and now knowing on the map what he literally did, tell me your reaction to that, Darlene.
This is somebody that was his soulmate for 25 years, and he was going to stay there forever until he found her. He said he loved her. He did not treat her like he loved her. If he, in fact, did this to her, he took her last breath, and then he threw her away like trash.
Oh, man. She's working so hard.
And I want his family to know that they need to be careful. And I'm going to tell them the same thing I used to tell my daughter every time I hugged her goodbye. Watch your back. That's how I feel.
Understandable. One of the comments that I learned from my sources was that they feel very confident that they're going to get this guy. I hope that at least brings some solace.
I really believe, or at least maybe I just want to believe, that this was an accident. To think that he would do this on purpose is just more than I want to believe.
Let me pause here for a second because we've got a couple of good comments. Cabling saying, okay, that's a good point, Gavin. Then why is the boat and the dinghy in Coast Guard custody? Because they're cooperating. The Coast Guard is doing the investigation because they have got the resources to do it. That's why. And they will be witnesses and experts and all that stuff in the trial in the Bahamas. And the other part of that question came from Barb Olson. Okay, so if we're talking about international waters, then how did the case of the 18-year-old on a cruise ship with her family where her stepbrother killed her be tried in the USA? Because they were not in international waters. They were in American waters. That's why. And it's been clear. They've said that. The FBI has said that. And it's in the court records that when she died, they were in American waters. It is therefore under the purview of the FBI. If this crime happened in American waters, I think the FBI would be the lead investigators. Because it was in Bahamian waters, it's the Coast Guard that can help with permission from the Bahamas. That's why. But if you go back, Barb, and you read the documents in the Anna Kepner case, they were in American waters. So it's under American jurisdiction. But great questions, guys.
And now I think he's being cowardly. And everybody deserves more than that.
knowing his history and how he has treated Lynette in the past, what he has done and the things he has said, the allegation that he choked her almost unconscious and then the next day said, I wish I'd finished the job. How hard is it to believe that this was an accident?
I don't think it was an accident at all. I think it was an emotional response to something that she said or he knew was coming. I think that she was actually
And that's what you guys were talking about earlier, right? Maybe she was getting ready to leave and it was his response. It's such a dangerous time, right?
end of her rope with him.
And he's
I
saying
think
that right
that she
here.
had given him more than enough chances. And I think that this is all a culmination of him knowing that he was about to lose a meal ticket. And she either said something and he exploded, and I think it went further than he intended for it to go. That's my thought process. Well, once he got there, he just finished it. Rather than take responsibility for it, he just finished it. So,
wow,
that's my thought process.
My daughter loved him. With all her heart, she loved him. She went back hoping they could be happy. And
hey, can I pause here and just be like Dad Gavin for a second here? Just let me just be like paternal Gavin for a second. And this is not Lynette's fault, okay? This is not Lynette's fault, but as her mom just said, she loved him, right? And there are very complex human emotions it's involved here. And there not only is there just the basic human emotion of love and being in love with someone and everything that comes with that, but then there's also the coercive stuff and the psychologically abusive stuff. But if I can just be Dad Gavin here for a second, this is what I tell our children. And maybe you disagree with me here, but here's the reality of life. Love is not a good reason to be in a marriage or a long-term relationship. It just isn't. I mean, it's good to be in love, but if you're just like, but I love him so much or I love her so much, I have to be with her, that is not a good enough reason. That's maybe like 20th on the list. You have to like the person. You have to, I think that's the first thing on the list. You have to like and respect the person. In order to build a life where you're both going to be happy and safe. And how can you like somebody who is abusive toward you? You can't. You can love them for sure, right? Because love is a weird emotion. And the other thing that, like, if you are in a relationship and you're going, oh, but I love him so much. I love him so much. Nobody is denying that, but it's also still unhealthy and dangerous. And you can love hundreds of people. You can love so many people. And you can love a person that is abusive toward you and leave them and spend the rest of your life loving them, but knowing that I had to be safe or my children had to be safe or something like that, right? Love is never enough to stick with somebody. You have to like them. You have to respect them. You have to feel safe with them. You have to be rooting for them. They have to be rooted. There's just so much. They have to be a good partner. So if you are in a relationship right now where you're just like, but I love him so much, or but I love her so much, but that is the only thing, that is not enough. Especially when there's abuse involved. Especially when there's abuse involved. It's not enough. You got to go. And I remember talking to our daughter where, they were young and they were both off at college at different places, and they had like this, and they're married now, and we love our son-in-law. He's terrific. But Daddy, I love him so much and I miss him so much. Who cares? Who cares if you love him? You can love 1,000 people. What about all the other things? And it turns out in their case, all the other things were also there too. So that's terrific, right? So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm sorry, but I'm sure she did. I'm sure Lynette did love him, but it's not enough. And most people never realize that. Most people never realize that. Like, I'm not in a happy marriage with my wife of 26 and a half years because I love her. That is why that's why we courted, fell in love, right? That's not how we've stayed together this long. We stayed together this long because we really like each other. We are each other's best friend. There's nobody else we'd rather like be with, hang out with, talk smack about others with, complain about our children with, glory in our children with, and bask in their awesomeness together. There's nobody I would want to build a life with. She and I have built homes together. We have done projects together. We have traveled together. She's the only person, and none of that is love. Love is there, but it's like 20th on my list of priorities. That's the message from, I guess, paternal Gavin. Here we go.
He knows anything else. If it's an accident, just come forward.
Yeah, that's up.
Just come forward. This is a hard interview because I was hoping they would find her. But we will find her. She'll be found. I'm sure of that.
And not only that, I've mentioned this to you before, that I have covered many cases that have resulted in guilty verdicts without a body being found.
And that is a good thing, but I don't know that it's comforting.
I hope that also at least lends to the notion that justice may very well be in your future.
So this part of the interview, I'd like respectfully to Ashley, and she's being a comforting and nice person, and that's wonderful. But there's no justice here. If he got arrested and was found guilty and spent the rest of his life in prison, or was given the DP and his life was ended early, they still don't have their daughter. There's still no justice. I can see why she's saying that, but yeah, no comfort.
And it was wonderful to see the Bahamian Police and Defense working with the Coast Guard. That made me very happy. So I hope that the Coast Guard got some new information that they can use that will be helpful in this.
Yeah. That's a big part of this. The fact that the Royal Bahamian Police Force worked hand and glove with the United States Coast Guard Investigative Service and handed over that dinghy and the other pieces of critical evidence. I mean, that's a very big deal. We are coming up on 8 weeks in 2 days. I'm recording this on June 5th, Friday, June 5th. As of tomorrow, it'll be 8 weeks. So to see that evidence turned over to the Coast Guard for processing, that's also, again, got to feel at least like progress.
It does.
Did you see her body language, though? I mean, yeah, it does, but...
So it's been a long time. That is definitely progress, yes.
What is your message to Brian?
One thing Brian always has said is he wanted to be off the grid. This was so big to him. He didn't want anybody to tell him what to do, where to go. So I think if he looks on the internet and sees his name plastered everywhere, that is something that's never going to happen to him unless he gets a new name or until he's arrested, and then he'll be off the grid for good.
Good for her.
Well,
she's feisty.
Be off our grid if he's arrested and convicted. And again, he's not charged with anything.
She's gritty, feisty, and I love her.
innocent until proven guilty. He is not charged with any crime yet. But if that does happen, no one has to ever hear from him again. But the concern is I know a lot of reports have been out there that he's fled the country. I have sources that have said that's absolutely not true. But do you think that's something he would consider doing if the heat turned up so much so that he thought an arrest was imminent? Do you think he would somehow escape the country without going the usual means of airplanes and boat tickets and customs and immigration?
There's only one thing that I've heard, and that is that he has a brother in California that has a cabin in the mountains someplace that has no electricity, no phone service, and very few people know that he even has it. And so it's a getaway place that they talk about being
off the grid.
So,
that's so funny because
and so
if he owns it, we now know.
That's the only thing that I can think of that he could probably do. Anything else, he's going to probably need a passport. And guess what? Those passports have names, and if you're on the watch list, you're not going anywhere. So
I'm glad that you told me about that cabin because that makes it not so much off the grid anymore. That makes it very public. Right. That makes it a place that is no longer a secret.
That's why I said
it. I'm glad that we can have a chuckle. This has been such an incredibly sad time these last 7+ weeks. But I'm going to say, you've both handled this so stoically.
They've done a good job.
I hate asking the question, how are you holding up? Because I can't imagine that you are. But how are you managing these extraordinarily difficult weeks?
Well, we go to counseling.
Good.
Once a week.
Good for them.
That has seemed to help because you can release some of the negative.
Oh my goodness, I am so impressed with the strength that he has to say that out loud. We go to counseling. I think that's going to be helpful to other people. And he goes on to say like how it's helping.
And get feedback about how they think, almost like I'm not going to say it, almost like a psychologist. Well, she is a psychologist, but like a psychiatrist almost. And so it's helped. And that's one of the ways we do it. The other thing is that I try, because the impact is always going to be harder on a mother than a father. And I try to support Darlene as much as possible.
I think the thing for me is there's so many emotions, so many. I mean, I'm heartbroken and I'm mad and I'm angry and I'm disappointed and just the whole gambit. It's everything. So, and somebody tells you it's okay to have all these feelings, it makes you feel a little bit better,
And one other thing.
I'm really impressed with these people. My goodness.
From a personal standpoint, sometimes I feel a little guilty about her having a job at AT&T. I got it for her. It was nepotism at its best. She never even took a test to get in. And that's unheard of in today's society.
AT&T is where she met Brian. So he's like, I feel guilty. I got her that job.
But I got her in, and she was excellent.
And everybody loved her.
and everybody, the people that surrounded her always gave me feedback on how she was doing. And she was dedicated and determined. And that was Lynette. Most women didn't climb telephone poles. And she was scared to death. And she called me and she said, how do I do this? How do I not fall? And what I did is I prepared her for falling by getting a leather vest so that if she clung to the pole, she wouldn't have splinters in her breasts. That kind of stuff. So, I mean,
A sweet
that was my
dad.
baby.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've spoken to her coworkers at AT&T, and your description is spot on. They loved her. They said she was a delight. She had a bright light. They enjoyed the moment that they go into the room and she'd be in there. And the exact opposite was the description of Brian. They said he was the most difficult person they'd ever come in contact with, that he wound up the employees unnecessarily so. He was supposed to be a leader. He made their lives hell. It was truly the absolute opposite description. And these are from colleagues who, you know, they don't have any reason to say otherwise. They offered.
Nope.
You know, this is a hard question to ask, and you don't have to answer it. And I feel as though you might have been waiting for this week to be over before making plans going forward for Lynette. Is there a thought about a funeral or a memorial for her?
Well, Darlene talked to when Dan and Kathy, her father and his stepmother, were here.
DNA, the day we gave our DNA.
The DNA day. Darlene brought it up, but got no response.
Well, it's just, we're not ready to talk about that quite yet. But yeah, we know. We all know.
Oh, man.
It isn't that we expect Lynette to come back. It's just, yeah, we know we have to do that. Yeah.
Not quite ready.
That's all I can say on that.
Understand. I often say this is a club that you have joined. You had no intention of being in this club. You did not want to be in this club, and you are in this club, and it is a very exclusive and rare club, and navigating it is hard. I keep saying the best way to exist in that club is to reach out to others in the club and also lean on your support systems. Just like that. Just like that.
Sweet.
I think the thing is just stepping forward. You just don't know what to do next. You know, this is over, now what? You know,
Right.
Because I still don't have Lynette. So.
Yeah, anybody who asks about closure doesn't understand that there is no such thing as real closure. You can't do that. You can't ask for that. You can try to get close, but you can't. It'll never
can't get closure
really
or justice.
exist, you know, and people think it might, but only you know that. Hey guys, let's stay in touch, and thank you for this.
I'm going to call that good. Those are impressive people, and I'm really glad they went on with Banfield to talk about their experience here. Let's bring up a picture of Lynette. We'll go to your comments, and Barb Olson says thank you. Couldn't remember Anna's name. Yep. Archangel Marici, could the Bahamian police start an extradition for this case or an international alert search for him? Maybe you mentioned it, but would like to know. I think that there has to be charges first. If there are charges, then there will be an arrest warrant, and that there are treaties between our governments, right? And whatever that treaty says, I don't know what our cooperative agreements are between us and the Bahamas, but I feel like it's probably pretty strong. Then the U.S. starts to go out there and make arrests, and once they do that arrest, I'm sure they would extradite him. But it all boils down to, are they going to bring charges against them? Jenny says, Gavin, yes, you need respect, compassion, trust, understanding, communication. It's a long list. It is. Shell Blue Eyes. So I'm way behind, but moments before your first yawn, I yawned. So when you yawned right after me, it was perfect timing. Well, I'm glad that worked out. Archangel says, what people in bad relationships call love is just intermittent reinforcement. Pretty strong psychological tactic. All right. Celluloid Daydream, Gavin, one of my favorite movie quotes. I love you so much, I wish I liked you. Born to be Bad, 1950. Yeah, Tiff Knox saying you can love a lot of people. I've told our children the same thing, and it's just as easy to fall in love with a loser as it is a winner. And we tell our kids, like, you don't want to meet your future spouse at like a bar. You want to go to dental conventions, meet a dentist, man. Go to like art shows, go go to the theater, go to places where you will meet people that are better than just like meeting at a bar. I mean, I guess you can meet somebody at a bar, but be purposeful about it. Frida says, I hate to say this, but wanting your children to grow up with both parents together isn't a good reason either. The children get traumatized by constant fear and violence, for sure. Cabling, that's pretty awesome, Gavin, but really not the norm. Okay. Surth River says, Brian went to Sacramento for a couple of days and then went to Michigan, hasn't been seen since then. Okay. Thank you very much. Keep on scrolling here. I think we have caught up. That's the update on the case, guys. The Coast Guard is done for now, but they will continue their investigation into Lynette's disappearance and likely death, and hopefully we will have an arrest soon. I hope so. I really hope so. Now, we're not finished, though. We are not finished. We got a couple more things to do. I know that this one has been a bit of a long one, but we've got some headlines that I want to update you on in the Sandra Birchmore, Nancy Guthrie, Alex Murdaugh, and Karen Reed cases. We've got a little good news. And of course, it's an animal good news because I'm a sucker for good news when it comes to animals. But before we do that, how about we do 3 questions, shall we? Yeah, let's. 3 questions. Here we go.
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Okay, guys, in this segment, what I do is I answer 3 questions that you sent to me to 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's an email address. It's all written out in alphabetic characters, no numbers in there at all. 3questions@gavinfish.com, THREE questions@gavinfish.com. I take them, I put them into a giant spreadsheet, and then I answer them in the order that I see fit. But my solemn promise is that I will continue to answer all of your questions. I will not dodge any. I just get to choose the order. And that's the deal we make. That's our covenant, right? Okay, Ruth for question number 1. And I like the questions where you guys can answer them. So answer these questions in the live chat and in the comments. Ruth asks, what was your first car? Either the first one you bought or the first that you drove consistently, or both. I would gladly tell you about both of my first cars. My parents provided for us a 1993 Ford Festiva. The thing was about the size of my desk. It had 4 seatbelts in it, but boy, if you got into a crash, you would be in trouble. I think it was built by Kia for Mazda for Ford, but it got really, really good gas mileage, and we named that car Squid, the Reverberating Earth Conscious Babe Festiva. Squid was maybe my favorite car I've ever had because I just loved the memories in there. And it's really funny, the quality of cars that you drive isn't necessarily what's going to be the factor on what your favorite car is, right? That car, while it was a good car, was light on options, man. Manual transmission, it did not come with a stereo. The only option that my parents got on that car was air conditioning, which in Sacramento I don't think is an option. But man, I loved that car, and they got it my senior year of high school. I was not allowed to drive until I had my Eagle Scout, and I hated Scouts. So I didn't get to drive till I turned 18. I had other ways. I had other ways of driving. I should say I didn't get to drive legally until I was 18, but Squid was the car that I did that in. The first car that I bought was a 1986 Toyota Supra. I bought it from my brother-in-law and sister. It was silver. His name was Ed. And he was a fast car. Oh, I loved that car. I got so many tickets in that car. In fact, when I was telling you the story about being in Teton Valley, Idaho, going like 140 miles an hour, I was in my Supra, and he wasn't even close to topped out. I think he probably could have made 170 something. Let's see what the top speed of a 1986. Okay, top speed 1986 Toyota Supra. I was at the top. It says 137 miles an hour, so I must have had a tailwind. That's funny. The second generation. Hold on. No. I had a third generation with 200 horsepower. So yeah, I was at the top. I was right at the top. 139, 140 miles an hour. I must have been going a little downhill with a tailwind, but boy, that was a fun car. Goodness. Yeah, tell me what your first car was, and I hope you had good memories in that car. Second question of the day for 3 questions is from Kelly. What was your favorite subject in grade school? Of course, you guys know my favorite subject in high school was photography, but my favorite subject in grade school, I think out of the normal classes, I probably at the time would have said PE, though I wasn't really an athlete, or maybe spelling. But when I was in 6th grade, Mr. Bales started a school newspaper, and let's open up this volume 1, number 1, the Trajan Tribune from December 1986. Here we go. Hey, I've got a front page above the fold. Look at that. Eric Egan and I reported on our new vice principal at Trajan Elementary School, December 1986. But if I could turn to page 3, because I have another article. This is an important one. The headline is What's in Style by Gavin Fish and Mel Marone. Mel was my buddy. We'd play around on the playground. I have not seen Mel. He moved away, I think at the end of 6th grade. All right. What's in Style by Gavin Fish and Mel Marone. A lot of people today are wondering what's in style and what's not. At Trajan Elementary School, there have been questions like, quote, how do clothes make style at school? Close quote. About 1/8 of the 4th through 6th graders say clothes have to have color and cool designs. So we had done a poll, apparently. For example, shirts that have well-known names are popular. Many types of clothes that people wear are OP, Esprit, and Levi's 501s. Most of these clothes cost more than $30 for one article of clothing. That is written by 6th grader Gavin Fish and my writing partner. There had to be two authors for that amazing little piece of journalism. And also, I'm looking at the staff box, and look, along with Tyler McMahon, I was the advertising director this issue. Oh my goodness, here's a student council update by Shannon Russell and 6th grade girlfriend of yours truly, Karina Torkelson. Anyway, so I would say in 6th grade, the journalism course was my favorite, and that was our question, right? What was your favorite subject in grade school? I would say journalism was my favorite. And those are our 3 questions, right? So what were they? No. We've only done 2 questions. Question number 3. Okay, from Zoe. I have a few YouTube channels. What kind of music do you use to not get copyrighted? Like, for example, the music you use for transitions or when you do the music for good news. Hey, Wanda, well, here's the thing, Zoe. I have a music director. Wanda, can you just give me a little vibe? Just a little vibe? Oh, that's nice, Wanda. Yes, she knows what's doing. Okay, Zoe, here's the thing. In order to not get copyrighted, you must not use copyrighted music, or you must have a license to that copyright. Now, in the case of my theme song, that is my composition and my performance. I did that. And I did that because I didn't want to pay for rights to a song. Now, for things like my tangent song or my headline song or my good news song, you can use. I'm not saying I do because I've got Wanda, and Wanda is our music director, and she does original music. But you can use either. I mean, YouTube provides musical tracks that you can use that are what do they call that? I almost called it open source, but it's a general use license that you don't have to pay for. Or you can purchase, a subscription to something like Envato Elements, or you can use Suno. I know that on Suno, with your premium membership, you get license for the things that are composed. I'm not saying I do that. I'm just because I have Wanda. And Wanda does, she does amazing compositions that are, hey, Wanda, give us some jazz, will you? Just kidding. And you know what? While Wanda's playing, keep going, Wanda. Just keep going. We'll turn you down just a little bit. And while Wanda's playing, this royalty-free, that's the phrase that I was looking for, this royalty-free music, I can play this as long as I want because it is mine. That's what you do. Suno is your friend. Okay, so questions of the day. I think the two that you guys could answer in the live chat is, what was your first car, and what are your favorite subjects in school? And I would love to read those, but while you guys are putting that in, how about you and I, speaking of amazing music, check out Headlines in True Crime. Here we go.
True crime headlines.
Okay, just a couple. I know that we're going long tonight, but just a couple of headlines that I want to bring you guys up to date on. First, in the Sandra Birchmore killing, this on CourtTV.com by Lauren Silver. This was reported over the weekend. Former officer accused of killing Sandra Birchmore to remain behind bars. Dateline is Boston. The former police officer accused of killing his mistress and attempting to stage the scene to look like it was self-harm has been ordered to stay behind bars as he awaits trial. Matthew Farwell, 39, has pleaded not guilty to federal charges of yada, 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 yada. And in an order denying Farwell's request for pretrial release, Judge M. Page Kelly found the government met its burden on risk of flight and danger to the community and obstruction and orders. So he's staying behind bars, and that is a terrific thing. In the Nancy Guthrie case, this written by Brendan Morrow for USA Today, Savannah Guthrie, Instagram update about missing mother Nancy Guthrie. Savannah Guthrie is sharing a new message about her missing mother as the search for Nancy Guthrie stretches into its 5th month. The Today host 54 took to Instagram on the 7th, yesterday, to share an emotional post about her mom, who was reported missing February 1. On her Instagram story, Guthrie posted an image of religious artwork along with text that read, "Oh my soul it cries out, soul it cries out." Close quote. The Today anchor captioned the photo with the message, "Bring her home," along with a heart emoji. And of course, the family is offering up to $1 million. There's about a $1.2 million reward for information that leads to the return of Nancy Guthrie. I just can't even imagine the pain, man. From the Post and Courier, written by Jocelyn Grizak. I don't know how to pronounce her name. New South Carolina judge picked for the Alex Murdaugh retrial. South Carolina's highest court has selected a judge to preside over Alex Murdaugh's second trial for the June 2021 murders of his wife and youngest son. An order from the Supreme Court on June 8th, today, named Circuit Judge Deborah R. McCaslin. She will handle both the new trial and what is likely to be a bevy of complex legal arguments filed ahead of time by state prosecutors and Murdaugh's defense team. His lawyers, for instance, have already said they plan to ask that a retrial be held somewhere other than Walterboro, the small city in Colleton County where hundreds of onlookers flocked for the 6-week proceeding in early 2023. McCausland has served as an at-large judge since 2020, rotating around South Carolina's 16 judicial districts. So we've got a new judge assigned there. In the Karen Reed saga, this from people.com, his alleged texts about Karen Reed were vulgar and misogynistic. Now investigator must answer questions under oath. We talked about this last week. I couldn't even read aloud this stuff. Not because YouTube wouldn't allow it, because like my own personal ethics, I just could not read it aloud. It was so bad. Okay, this written by Liam Quinn today. The former lead investigator in the Karen Reed case, who was fired after his alleged offensive text messages, and voicemails in his own voice. But okay, we have to use that word. After his offensive text messages were exposed, will answer questions under oath. Michael Proctor, a former Massachusetts State Police trooper, is set to be deposed as part of a wrongful death lawsuit against Reed in connection with the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. O'Keefe's body was found outside the home of a fellow police officer in Canton, Massachusetts, January 2022. Following her acquittal, Reed filed suit against several figures involved in the investigation, including Proctor, who's accused of having sent text messages containing racial, homophobic, and anti-Semitic sentiments, as well as derogatory remarks about Reed and women, according to her complaint. Her lawsuit accuses investigators of trying to frame her for the killing of O'Keefe. Her lawsuit was preceded by the wrongful death suit, which O'Keefe's family filed in 2024. So they filed that against her. Anyway, he's going to have to testify under oath. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And now, Wanda, if you would, we need to have a little transition to some happy music. Maybe you can just give us some plucky music to transition into good news. It's nice. It's very nice, Wanda. I like that music. Oh, guys, she pulled out the tuba. Did you hear that, Wanda? All right, we can stop. Thank you very much. Okay, for our good news today, endangered California condor flies into Oregon for the first time in 122 years. Probably that condor isn't 122 years old. Probably. I'm getting ahead of myself. I think they're talking about the species. Okay, last month, this from the Good News Network, written by Andy Corbley. Last month, the California condor flew into Oregon before returning after several hundred miles to its home in Redwoods National Park, becoming the first condor recorded in the state since 1904. Taking a closer look, condor conservationists among Northern California's Yurok tribe concluded it was condor B9. Well, they really know how to name them. An animal that had been born in captivity and released into the wild in 2022 by the Yurok. The animal flew a grand total of 380 miles in 4 days in a loop, starting high in the Redwoods before passing Redding in Northern California and then entering Oregon, and made stops near Medford, Cave Junction, and Brookings before recrossing state lines and returning to the national park. Yurok Tribe Wildlife Department Director Tiana Williams-Clausen told the Oregon Organization for Public Broadcasting that B9 is an especially curious bird. Quote, she flew almost 100 miles per day, Williams-Clausen said, which means she was really utilizing the landscape the way that only a condor can, really taking advantage of those mountains and riverways that give good flight condors. These critically endangered birds have proven to be one of the toughest jobs humanity has seen attempting to undo the damage their species caused on another. From the 1980s, when the last 22 wild birds were captured and placed in a breeding program, to 2016, when more animals were born in the wild than died there, the population had only increased to 276 wild individuals. Encouraging milestones come more often these days, however, and indeed the redwoods population made such mini history when in February a female laid an egg in the hollow of a redwood tree in a remote corner of the park. Though it failed to hatch, it was the first time that had happened in over 100 years. Williams-Clausen was nevertheless encouraged after it was gradually understood that the egg failed. Quote, even with the egg loss, that was still a really amazing milestone for us, she said. It's pretty common that eggs will fail in that first year as these naive parents are really figuring it out. So I love conservation stories. I love animal stories. I especially love the ones where animals are coming back from the brink of extinction. It's just, I don't know, feels good. Glad we get to talk about those things. And those guys are your headlines.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie. One last lookaroo at the old comments before we go. Elizabeth says, I met my ex-husband in a bar. Was it the bar? That's my question, Elizabeth McMasters Esquire. That's funny. Nurse Detective Gavin, he can be prosecuted in the U.S. U.S. vessel gives them jurisdiction. Bahamian government would give case up to the U.S. Okay. I mean, I know that a lot of people think that. I disagree. Respectfully, I disagree. Scotch's mom, and you know what? We'll find out. And I don't mind being wrong. Scotch's mom says, my sister met her husband at a bar. Law, they've been married 43 years come this October. I'm glad for them. I'm happy for them. Cinnabe says, no, not dental conventions. Oh, that James guy who poisoned his wife was picking up mistresses at dental conventions. Oh no, I need to rethink myself. I need to rethink this all. Let me pull this up. Okay. Let's see, going on down. The 22222 said, hey, Gavin, I bought a 68 Chevy Nova, dual exhaust. Don't know if it even had seat belts. Awesome. Mooney, Mustang Grand V6, dirt brown with an 8-track and wouldn't run when it rained, but it was fast and loved it. Nice. Barb says 1972 Buick LeSabre passed down from my mom when her and my dad both bought a Chrysler Cordoba each. Wow, twin Cordobas. Nice. Scotch's mom says my first car was a 77 Chevette. I called it a Vet. Technically, yeah, you're good. Elizabeth says my first car was a Subaru XT sports car, 6 cylinders. Received my only speeding ticket in that car. It was red and fast. Frida People, I drove a Chevy Shove-It. Then I was given a Chevy Shove-It. Okay. Then I was given a Mercury Comet stick shift on the column. 3 on the tree. Very cool. Jenny, mine was a 96 Oldsmobile Bravada. Looks like a Ford Explorer. It had a digital dash and there was a short in the dash. So sometimes I wouldn't know how fast I was going or how much gas I had. Nice. Garth, my first car was a 70 Chevelle. Very cool. Scotch's mom says, Gavin, reading was my favorite subject in grade school. Very cool. Yeah. Tina, learned to drive in my mom's 72 Nova. No power steering, but so much fun to drive. They don't make them like that anymore. They certainly don't. Elizabeth says, I'm a nerd. I loved reading. Discovered Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Brown books in elementary school. I did a lot of Old West reading when I was in elementary school. I loved the gunfights and stuff. Jenny says, I don't know what my favorite subject was in grade school. I loved playing the Oregon Trail in 5th grade social studies. Nice. Elizabeth says, I missed Benetton. I don't know. In 86, yeah, Benetton would have been there, but for a 6th grader, 4th through, I don't know. Esprit, definitely. OP, definitely. Levi's. Now, fun fact about me, while I don't wear 501s, I will only wear 505s, which are just the zipper fly version of 501s. I'm a Levi's guy and have been forever. Though I like Wranglers as well, but 505s are the best fit ever. Mooney says, my favorite subject in school was art, lasted all the way through, and I ended up going to art college for undergrad. Loved it. Awesome. Lynn had a Nissan Stanza and loved gym class. Jenny says it was absolutely disgusting. Let's see. And imagine if you read it and someone clipped them reading you. Nope, I wouldn't do either. I was mad when I read through the filing. Talking about, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was so bad. So bad. Thank you there very much for that. Ms. Kells Alicia says, extraterritorial criminal jurisdiction. 18 U.S. Code, subsection 112-878-970-1116-1117 and 1201, and the Coast Guard has its own investigation unit, FBI not required. Okay, so I need to copy this. Extraterritorial criminal jurisdiction. I'm copying it so I can look it up. Maybe I reserve the right to be wrong. It happens all the time. Barb Olson, Wanda's showing off, but you know what? She's not naturally a show off. She is not a prideful. She's a humble person, but I ask her to. She's amazing. Wanda's awesome. Let's see. Elizabeth says, no, it was not the bar, but ended up in court. So there is that. That's funny. The Chevette was the Chevette. Got it. Sirth River says that's not love, it's a bond, but love is a partnership that nurtures. Okay. We might be saying the same thing, just disagreeing on the language, but I appreciate that comment. Guys, thank you so much for spending your Monday with me, or whenever you are spending it with me. Please remember, I think I'm probably going to do more of these. Bring it up on camera, Gavin. More of these live streams that are in the dark room. It's just something that I enjoy doing anyway, and will be doing them from time to time. I don't expect that we'll get tons of us on there, but it's time for us to just spend together doing something other than talking about crime. As I make prints, I will probably make some of them available, like I did these ones. I made 5 of them last night. Those are the only 5 that I will make. And if you are interested in a piece of my photography, what I will do is I will number and sign each one and send it off to you. Though, if you made an order already, I want to give you a heads up that it's going to be a few weeks before you get it, because we're leaving and I won't be here to send them out to you. But don't worry, I will get them to you if you're interested in one of my photographs. And this is, if we go in to look at this photograph, this is a photograph of the photograph. And what I love about this, I did this on Ilford HP5. It's a 400 ISO. It's very grainy. And you can see that in the picture of it, plus the grain of the paper, of course. But it just, I don't know. I really enjoyed taking that picture, and I really enjoyed developing it with y'all. Also, while you're on the website, if you click on the little fishy icon, that will take you over to the fish tank where we hang out together. You're always welcome to join us there. And I guess that's it for us, guys. I guess that is it. That is all 10 gallons of this show. I don't think we fit it into a 5-gallon show. I think we fit it into about 9.5 gallons. But thank you so much for spending your time with me. Remember, over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be a little sporadic as I join you from the road, from my phone, just talking about different things having to do with life mostly. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you for your patience with me as I break with my schedule, as I spend some time with my family out in California. With that, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.